I am the famous American. Here's what I want to bring to your attention. Let's talk about homeless people. Now, here in the United States, there are a lot of homeless people. Even in the city I live in, there's a large homeless population. And here's my epiphany on this. So, here in American culture specifically, there are a lot of things being canceled. Actors, comedians being canceled because they say something that is offensive to a certain group of people. Apparently, even the toy Mr. Potato Head has been canceled. He's no longer Mr. because it could offend people because of the specific gender assigned to it. So, knowing all of that, I try to think ahead, and I've made videos about this before. I try to think ahead, what's next, or who's next, as far as what's going to be the next taboo thing that we can't talk about, that we can't behave the same way. And two things come to mind. One is the elderly population. I think times will eventually change to where there's going to be more respect given to older people in the way they're treated. But specifically another one, and I think that maybe even come first, is how homeless people are perceived. So I'm telling you my opinion, my perspective here. The way I perceive it is that, in my mind, homeless person equates with person who is mentally ill. So ultimately, there's this concept, and you'll see it even in movies too. It's a trope in movies that you'll see, where if someone's homeless, it's a punchline, it's a joke to just push them aside. They're crazy, is ultimately what's implied. Well, now that people are taking mental illness much more seriously, I think that's going to be changing, because we're recognizing that homeless people, and again, this is my perception, are largely, for the most part, suffering from mental disorders and mental illness. So I think what complicates this issue is I feel that part of the culture of the identity of the United States is pull yourself up by the bootstraps and work hard, and you can accomplish anything. But that's the American dream, right? That's part of our culture. So I think collectively we can look at the homeless population, and it's easier to think they're lazy. In reality, they're mentally ill. Now granted, in the population of homeless people in the United States, there are definitely people who are not mentally ill. I can imagine there are some people who just don't want to work. And I've met people like that, who are very intelligent. They were not mentally ill. They did not suffer from depression or anxiety, whatever it is. They just didn't want to work, and they did whatever they could to not work. Those people definitely exist. But my understanding is the majority of people who are homeless in the United States do suffer from mental illness and disorders. And that's the real issue. But it's so easy to turn a blind eye to that. We don't really know what to do with people who have mental illnesses, do we? I mean, it used to be we'd put them in, what do they call it, sanitariums, like institutions. Like basically put them in jail without bars necessarily, I suppose. That's what we do. And now, what happens? Homeless or end up in prison. And that's what happens a lot of the time. So I think that's interesting. It makes me wonder in the near future, or maybe in the far future, if ultimately we are going to see that it's going to be taboo to even say homeless person. That homeless person it's offensive, and you can't say it anymore. And instead, I don't know what we will say. If we will say those who are mentally ill and are without jobs, I don't know the correct way it'll be. But this is me just kind of forecasting how that's going to look in the future. But I would love to hear your feedback. Leave a comment right here. Can you agree with what I'm saying here? I mean, can you see what I'm saying here? Homeless people are largely people who have mental illness issues, and therefore it's very difficult for them to keep a job. And in the future, they won't be the punchlines that they often are in movies that are made in the United States, and that's been a common reoccurring thing. What are your thoughts on it? I want to hear from you. Your comment belongs right here.